This January marks 6 years since the turning point in my life that led me into the flexibility journey, in my journey into flexibility. Up until that point, I was a power lifter. That's how I identified myself. I competed at a pretty high level, regionally and nationally, and that's just what I did. In 2014, in a regional competition, I ruptured my left bicep tendon on my first deadlift attempt of that meet. I was deadlifting 270 kilos, I believe, which at the time, it was my opening attempt. It was a weight that I had done numerous of times. Leading up to the competition, I had been experiencing some dull aching pains and deep insertion points in my elbow, which I addressed with painkillers and not the best way to address things like that. I ruptured my bicep. I had surgery within 3 days. They performed an endo button procedure, which is supposed to be the strongest procedure for bicep rupture repair. They pull the tendon back down and reattach it to the radius. They shave a little bowl and they attach it with a little steel button. So they call it an endo button procedure. The recovery is longer than previous procedures, but it's supposed to be stronger in the end. So that really, for me, was a turning point in my life where, I realized I had done all this work to be capable of doing one thing, and that was powerlifting. Recovery from that procedure was very draining physically and mentally, as I realized that I had become really incapable of doing a lot of things. I remember a couple months into the recovery feeling good enough to go start doing some aerobic exercise, and I went for a jog, and that lasted a couple minutes. My knees hurt, everything hurt. At the time, I was also weighing between 230, 240 pounds, which I'm 185 pounds now, so you can only imagine how much bigger I was at the time. So I spent a lot of time on an elliptical, trying to restore some basic aerobic conditioning. And it was at that point that I realized I had to make a change to better myself for the long haul, for the long term. I had to find a way. At that time, I was 29 years old, so I was way too young to be feeling like that, way too young. So I started looking, right? Obviously, mobility training has been a popular method of addressing, a popular method of training for quite some time now. And that's due to efforts like Gray Cook with the functional movement screen. What's his name? Supple Leopard. Why can't I think of it right now? Mobility WOD. What's his name? You'd hate to see this. He's got a little brain fart here. Kelly Starrett. Yeah. So guys like that have really been doing big things for, bringing mobility to the forefront at the start, and knowing that it's something that we need to address further. So this kind of stuff was stuff that I had already done as a power lifter, but I knew I had to do more. My body was so far gone that I needed more than that. I needed more than basic mobilizations to restore my body. So through a lot of research, I actually found gymnastic bodies. That's where a lot of my initial mobility and flexibility journey started. They provided this, like they provided online material for how you can address flexibility that was very unique and different than anything I had seen before. So at that time, I had also been losing some weight. So when I started doing some training with Gymnastic Bodies online material, I had dropped about 30 pounds or so. And that at that point, it was when I had really realized that I had never stretched before. I started doing some of their basic introductory things, introductory courses to flexibility, and just thinking, oh, this isn't a big deal, and just stretching my calves and stuff. And then, wow, I realized after a few sessions, like I've never really stretched before. Like I had this intense muscle soreness afterwards that I had never even thought that, stretching or flexibility training would provide anything of that sort. So, when I had started that journey, that would have been more so around 5 years ago, because my rehab was about 6 months long, and then it was like another 6 months of just getting back into conditioning shape. So it was about 5 years ago I started experimenting with the Gymnastic Bodies material, and I stuck really true to that stuff for about 18 months, I would say, about a year and a half. And I saw some good gains from that stuff. It was a basic introduction to flexibility and like how you should stretch. But, after about a year or so, you start realizing that there's more to flexibility than just some basic stretching. There's much more to it. If you're an athlete, you develop a competitive mindset with flexibility, and you start looking at things like a side split, and you see like that obtaining a side split is a demonstration of superior flexibility and mobility. So you start developing this competitive mindset with yourself, like, I really want to get that side split. I want to go down this rabbit hole and see what else is out there that would help me obtain a side split. A front split, it's a superior demonstration of flexibility. A back bridge, a superior demonstration of flexibility. So in flexibility training itself, you can start developing a competitive mindset. And in doing so, it really takes you down the rabbit hole in flexibility. Like, what can my body obtain? What kind of range can I unlock? Like, what kind of things can I do with flexibility? So it was around this time I started to experiment with other methods and research other methods. So started looking into some work from guys like Kit Laughlin, who Kit Laughlin was actually worked closely with Coach Chris Summers on the Gymnastic Bodies flexibility material, which I didn't find out until I started researching his work and realizing that he was actually played a major role in creating a lot of the Gymnastic Bodies material. So he, if you haven't checked his stuff out, it's wonderful. Like a bit more of a soft approach to flexibility, relaxation methods, but really, really, really great stuff. Through Kit Laughlin linked me to Emmett Lewis. Emmett Lewis is in the UK, more of a circus performing arts background, but really, evolved into someone who can teach superior methods of flexibility, has ways of addressing aspects of mobility. And then, if you're going in that direction and now you're studying flexibility, you start looking at some of the fathers of flexibility from some of the later eras, like Thomas Cruise. So he wrote the book Stretching Scientifically, which is really big in the 80s. And a lot of his methods really stand true to what's being done today, both within FRC methods, Emmett Lewis's methods. Like a lot of Thomas Cruise's work is shows up in, you know, all these other areas of flexibility. So he really was one of our fathers of you know, bringing flexibility to the modern world. And of course, I've checked out a lot of the FRC stuff. So experimentation was key for me in trying to figure out how far I could take my flexibility. I had to know what everyone was doing and all these methods. That being said, in trying to find the best method, they all have very strong similarities. So what it came down to for me was finding the optimal blend. You know, you can think about, when do I need to passive stretch? How should I passive stretch versus when do I need to active stretch? How should I active stretch? All these different methods, really, there's very strong similarities in them. And along the way, you end up finding a lot of hidden gems in what each person is presenting. So for the most part, they're presenting a lot of the same material, but they have, like, through some trial and error maybe, or through their own research, they have found some unique ways to approach certain things. So that being said, how long did it take me to obtain the flexibility that I have now? The front split came quite quickly for me. 18 months time frame. I was hitting a pretty solid front split, and I don't know why that is. I know other individuals that can hit a side split almost to the floor, but really struggle with the front split. So specific limitations are specific to the individual and should be addressed a bit differently as well. My back bridge was more along the 24 to 30 month range. And the back bridge, it really is a mysterious demonstration of flexibility, because it's very mysterious. Some days you have it, some days you don't. Like, that's for me, like, in my experience with it, some days I can demonstrate a pretty clean, full back bridge, knees locked, shoulders on top of wrists, and other days I'm doing what I can to get into an elevated bridge. So it depends on time of day, what I ate, how I rested, different things like that. But I find for me, the back bridge has always been a bit of a unique specimen in terms of, like, how I feel that day, or how I'm recovered and things like that. So yeah, back bridge was about 24 to 30 months, so 2 years, 2.5 years. And the side split, well, it took me 36 to 40 months, so 3 to 3.5 years, to really feel like I had flattened out really far in a side split. I started doing some over split work in a side split. But yeah, 3 to 3.5 years of, you know, very disciplined training. I have experimented with a lot of things, but through that 3 to 3.5 years, I trained side split once a week religiously. There was a time period there where I was experimenting with some martial art methods, where I was doing side split every day for a little bit, like things that I could do. So in that whole process, you know, I took what I thought was the best use of it and developed it into my own practice. So I believe what you will find in my side split course, which is like my first course I'm releasing right now, is that you'll find a unique approach to how I have blended all of these different methods and basically come up with what I feel is the best approach to trying to obtain a side split and obtain a certain demonstration of flexibility. Along the way, when doing that, my philosophy or my mindset is that if the goal is to obtain and demonstrate a certain amount of flexibility, along the way, your range of motion and mobility increases along with that. So that's a mindset and philosophy that I have just kind of adopted to give me some clarity when it comes to all of the different avenues of mobility out there. There's some guys out there that'll train controlled articulated rotations for 2 hours a day. And I do see use in doing controlled articulated rotations, but I don't see the time allotted to that being as productive as what you could do in other methods. So my mindset and philosophy is in working towards obtaining and demonstrating this type of flexibility, you will increase your range, improve your mobility, improve your health, your mental health, all of these things. So that's a mindset that you're going to need to adopt when you start utilizing my material. Is we're going to train and we're going to go for some superior range and demonstration of flexibility through our splits and our back bridge. And in doing so, we will improve many areas of mobility in the lower body and the upper body. So that's how I think this will help you in your own unique journey. So this is your own unique journey. You're going to learn a lot from me, but you're going to learn a lot from everyone else along the way. And I don't expect you to just say that this is the be-it-all, end-all, but this is an approach that I think you need to learn and that you need to experiment with to see what it'll do for you.